Yo, 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 welcome to the lounge. It's the Attitude Lounge where the vibe is strong. You can't go wrong. Tune in, sit back, let the good vibes flow. The Attitude Lounge is the place to grow. With the
Welcome
knowledge
back.
and the flow, get
You're
your mindset
tuned
right.
in
Time
to
to
the Attitude
elevate your
Lounge.
life.
I'm your
Step
host,
into the
Attitude.
lounge and
This is a
reset your
space
mind.
where we
Living all peace
celebrate
and letting
people
passion
who
stream.
love what they do. Today
Entrepreneurs,
we
artists
have
making it thrive.
Lili Nieves
Lehigh Valley's
from
got the spirit
Simply
alive.
Lili
Live
Podcast.
a life well lived through the
Thank
magic
you.
of doing what
Thank
you
you for
love.
having me.
Hi, Lily. Lily and I have history, man. I mean, when we're talking history, sometimes I've had people on the podcast with that I also have history, but Lily and I go like back to like what, fifth grade or something like that. Yeah.
Catholic school.
Yeah, so we definitely, we have lots of history, and I've had the pleasure also of having one of her daughters was in one of my classrooms, and so we don't talk all the time, but
No.
we kind of we follow each other's social media. So I know that you've been doing an amazing thing with Simply Lily.
Thank you.
And I want to hear all about it, and I want the audience to hear all about it. How did it
So
start? Yeah, how did it start? What you went?
so Simply Lily was something I don't know if you remember, like back in the
We talked years ago, like
yes,
8 years ago.
that I wanted to do this. And I
Yes,
started doing
same,
something.
yes.
I started doing something during the pandemic, and it was on this one streaming app. And the only thing is that I was getting it together, but I needed to learn more about how to do what I was doing. But when I
Yes.
started doing it, everyone wants to be on it, but then when it's time to do something, everyone was shy because it was a virtual.
Yeah.
And when you go live on Facebook, your 785 friends are watching if they
Yeah.
want to watch, and then that other person, it's so no one wanted to do it. But then life started lifing, and I said I'll come back to it. And it's right, it's about 8 years.
Yeah.
So I remember I said, if that's anything that's on my bucket list that I need to do, I said, I'm going to have to make sure that that's one of the things that I do, and it's going to have a podcast. And then my daughter got sick. And when I was at CHOP, the Children's Hospital of
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia,
Yeah.
when I was there, and I was just literally, I would either read because I wasn't working. I would either read or I was doing things on my laptop, and I kept wanting to do this. I said, I should start this. I should start this.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden I was like, you know, if I do this, what am I going to talk about?
Mm-hmm.
Not that my life doesn't have anything to talk about, because I have a lot to talk about.
Well, and we could talk, right,
Yeah,
forever.
we could
but
talk forever, but I wanted to do something with purpose.
yes.
And I remember as my life has gone on, I remember, but you have a book, you can write a book, you have so many things, and I've done so many things. I've reinvented myself so many times. But there was something when I was really praying, and then I was like, Lord, what is it that I need to do? And then I was thinking about this podcast, and I was like, if this is what I need to do, then like just I want to feel it. And it was like something about that was my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in November, and I said, well, I'm going to do it in the beginning of the year. I'm going to start the year off with that. And then I started looking things up on how to do a podcast, how to start a podcast. Like I didn't even know where to begin. And all of a sudden, things just kept coming to me. No, why do it in January 1st? Tomorrow's November 24th. You've been doing things for 3 days. You've been looking it up. And honestly, it just all started coming to me. And I started thinking of what kind of content can I start with. So my very first episode, which was Simply Lily, it was about why I got started.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole episode was basically talking about, I have my episodes in something like, there's an intention behind them.
Mm-hmm.
So the first season, it was more about healing and my journey and why I am where I'm at right now. So when I started season 1, episode 1, I talked about why is it that we have so much going on. And as brown and black people, we have a lot
Mm.
that we don't talk about. And there's women just suffering, and we just go through the motions. And it was something where I just started talking, and by the time I knew it, it was like 42 minutes, and I needed to stop.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, I did that. And I listened back,
And you still have so much more to say, right? And it's
Yeah,
like,
and then I listened back and I was like, "Oh, wow, that was like, wow." And the crazy part is that I drew a blank. I don't know. It was just filled within me to just say what I had to say.
mm-hmm.
But to me, it sounded like I would want to hear that.
Yes.
I would
Okay.
want to
Yep.
hear if I was driving my car or if I'm sitting down and I'm just listening to podcasts, I would want to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, all right, so I did that, and then I learned how to do all the stuff with the editing, and that was another 2 days of YouTubing and Googling and trying to get it together. But it all came together. And when I learned where I could just stream it to, and all of a sudden it said launched,
Right.
it was
You're
in the
like,
universe.
that's when
And
you
I'm
get a
like,
little bit of the heart
I
going.
can't even, I got the chills right now. I can't even explain to you how I said to my daughter, oh my God, it's out there.
Yeah.
I said, it's in the universe.
Yeah.
She said, Mom, she says, why did you not? What did you think you couldn't do it? She goes, I never doubted you. And I
Yeah.
said, well, I appreciate that. I said, but now I got to follow up with this.
Mm-hmm.
So then I remember we were in the hospital. She was in the hospital for 5 weeks, and it was just, okay, what's episode 2 going to be about?
Right. Yeah.
Episode 2 was about healing, and I shared my story about when my son was murdered.
Mm.
And the episode was about learning to breathe again.
Mm.
And this is stuff that I've learned in the last 20 some years of how I needed to find a balance within myself.
Process that, because it
Yes.
just, yeah, you grieve forever. It's not like, but I shouldn't call it grief. You kind of like, you let your person be at peace, right?
Right.
Because that's important with
Right.
God. But also, how do you navigate that with yourself? And it's a learning process, little by little. It's one step at a time.
It's learning how to process it and have the perspective of what are you going to do with what you're processing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, and I know people myself that they've lost people, and you fall apart mentally.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to be
Yes.
strong for my kids.
Yeah.
And that was something where I knew that there was I knew that I was just going through the motions for a while. And then I got back into church, and then I started having a whole different community.
Yeah.
And then I started feeling and learning things on how to let go.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but that wasn't enough. That I
Yeah.
knew wasn't enough. But then I started realizing that I'm gonna have to get serious about this, because one of these days this is gonna hit me, and it's gonna hit me like a ton of bricks, because I was always so busy.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did episode 2, it was about literally learning how to breathe. And we breathe in a different way, because sometimes we can hold our breath for 20 years and never come up for air. And I started doing a lot of reading on books and learning different techniques about, I kind of was my own clinician.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to be.
Yeah,
That's the way that you don't give up on yourself, by
right,
doing things like
right.
that. Yeah. And yeah, because it's different for everybody, but everybody has to find that place too. You have to do the work. You have to put it in.
And you have to read the right information, because if you don't, you can find yourself doing 5 different things, and then you're always right back where you started from. And that's kind of what I was saying in episode 2 was, don't think you're the only one, and you have to learn that it takes a village
Mm-hmm.
for you to understand that you can't do this by yourself.
And that you're worth it. Because that's another big issue that people of color have, our brown people. Like, is it, oh no, I don't do therapy. Oh no, I don't, oh no, I don't
Right.
healing. I'm going to work, and that's where you can fall apart. You just being overworked until all of a sudden, because grief is like that, right? It comes and hits you and smacks
Out of
you in the
nowhere.
face out of nowhere. You could be driving, you could be walking into through your front door. That's nothing you don't control.
You hit the nail on the head, because I shared in there where I used to be fine a whole month, maybe 2 months, and as soon as August comes, or July, when I know it's my son's birthday, I get in that shower, and there's something that I would just start crying and crying and crying.
Sis, you just hit it on the nail. When those birthdays, when the Christmas, the times that you guys had together, like little things that we used to do this, and all of a sudden it hits you. it's yeah.
Yeah, and doing unfortunately when you have someone who passes and you have a child who was murdered the way my son was, it's it's not like somebody dying from a disease or in a car accident. This is something that after the aftermath, then there's trials and there's all kinds of media. Because back 20 some years, we didn't have this, thank God, all the stuff with all the with internet and the whole thing with cell phones and
Yeah.
all that. It was different, but it's a long process. So then I took that and then I started seeing results. So then I
Mm-hmm.
did episode 3, and then I says, well, where am I at now when I'm going to this next level where I needed to find myself? I'm learning how to breathe again. So then I said, so here I am in my late 50s, and I said, I have to come out in a place where I need to. How did I get through all that in the last 23 years?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And where am I now? And where am I going?
Exactly.
And women who I basically did it not just so much on trauma, but where are we at with ourselves mentally and emptiness, the empty nest syndrome, and making sure that we take care of ourselves. The first thing with the first season was about healing, and the second season about was more about the new era. So
Yeah.
here we are. We're moving into transitioning into new milestones.
And I
Three,
I like that. So mine's is different. My podcast, I just do episodes, right? But I like that you do series.
yeah,
So you're in series 2 now. You did series 1, you do this a series
I
2.
just
You're about to
completed.
start series 3 soon.
Be
So
ready.
and
Series
yes.
3 is gonna season 3 is gonna be good. It's gonna
Yeah.
be about more about intentionality,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be where, and I'm listening to the audience. Like I remember I was getting DMs, and it's like, talk more about like Latinas and Black people with
Mm.
health, and I'm like, well, I'm not a doctor, but I start looking things up, like what can we do
But it's
to
about your experience when
right,
you're not right. You're not a doctor. You're not telling, go do this. You're not telling
right,
anybody. You're
mm-hmm,
saying, this is my story.
right.
This is my story. And this is how I got through this.
Right. And I did get sick at one point where you're just going, and I got a lot of exhaustion, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like chronic fatigue syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was something where, what am I going to do? And then again, let me tell you something. One thing I can never say, you can never go back when when you reach to God. But
Mm-hmm.
then when I started going into
Amen.
scripture and I started going back to church and consistency,
Mm-hmm.
consistency with my health, consistency with church, consistency with the scripture, and I was also showing that to my children.
That's
And
so important. And a
yeah,
lot of people still struggle with that, Lily. I hear, from people I talk to here and there. I think like I hear people you hit the nail on the head. Like, you have to go to church if you're trying to follow like Christ. Not telling anybody like go to
no,
church and follow Christ. I'm just saying from experience, I know what you're talking about because I felt like my life got to a point that it was falling apart. My health was falling apart.
mm-hmm,
Everything was, my finances were falling apart. And I felt that it was God stripping me
no, you're
of,
gonna
of
hit rock
everything
bottom
so that so that I was a person that used to say, oh, I got a
to
relationship with
elevate.
God. I don't need to go to church.
Right.
I got a relation. God knows me. And I found that going to church is a whole different like experience.
It's more spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have that connection with other people and you actually are there, I remember I was going to, and I shared this in my episode 2, where I wore black for like 3 years.
Mm.
It didn't matter. I wore black. And then this one girl comes up to me and she says, why do you always wear black? And I looked at her like I didn't even realize that I ended up in this pattern where I was just doing this. So, and I said, because, I said, you know why? But I couldn't even say because my son died. I was afraid to be happy. I was afraid, but I just got into this
Mm-hmm.
funk. But
Mm-hmm.
I remember my pastor at that time, he says, you have one of two things you could do. You can either forgive whoever did that to your son,
Mm.
or you can have this remain in control of you.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And I just looked at him. I was like, so I need to do like those whole thing with this person did this to me, and then I'm trying to keep it together from my children. I'm trying to keep it together from my family because this is something that we've never ever experienced in our
Mm-hmm.
family.
Mm-hmm.
But one day I just woke up after reading, after being in prayer, after being involved, and all of a sudden it came to me when I got to learn the act of forgiveness. Forgiveness wasn't for him, forgiveness was for me.
Amen.
And after that, I'm going to tell you something, Avi. I went back to school. I got my associates. Then I
Girl,
was
I was so
working.
happy to see you
Remember,
when I ran
I
into
was
you. I'm
like,
like,
I'm an old lady, but I'm going
yes.
back to school. And it was
I was
like,
like,
I
yes.
said, I have to get, I got to get my life together because if my son was here, he'd be like, Mom, what are you doing? So I went back to school. I got my associates, and then
I
I
remember
started.
being at your graduation. Well, I
Yes,
worked there, so.
yes, yes, yes. And that was so exciting because that was so like, it was almost like an okay, like, wow, you did it. It didn't take too long, but it
And
was
it's
in,
also for you.
yeah, but it was in God's
Yeah.
timing. Everything's in
Yes.
God's timing.
Yes.
And then after that, it was like my kids were in high school, my kids were graduating, but I knew there was one of two things I wanted to do. And it was break the stigma of a
Mm-hmm.
person like myself who was a teenage parent
Mm-hmm.
and a single parent. And I was going to make sure now I was a bereaved parent.
Mm.
And I was setting the precedent for my children that this is not the end of the world
Right.
and that we are going to go through this. We're going to strive, but the
Yes.
only way that we could do this is if we have faith and we have hope. But we have to go to church, and we need to have that element in our lives. So they learned. It
You
was
needed
so
to do that as a
easy.
family,
Yeah, and it was
as
so
a, yeah.
easy as a unit. So we would go. My girls did worship dancing. I would take my grandchildren,
Yeah.
and it all started coming into perspective. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, my kids are going. They're going to school, and they're doing. My one daughter was getting ready to go to college, and I'm like, you know what? Now I'm going to go back. So I went back to college and I got my bachelor's degree. And when I got that, I can't even tell you how proud my kids were. It's different when adults are proud. When your kids are proud of you, and that was where I set president and I cut another cycle and stigmas about women who can't do this. Women
Yes.
of color, Latinas, who we have our kids and that's it. We deal with what we go and we settle. I wasn't gonna settle.
You could do it at any given time.
It doesn't matter.
I've known 65-year-olds that are on their third master.
Yeah, I
You know?
graduated with some. Like
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
was crazy,
Just
but
powerful,
and it's something that no one can take away from you.
ever. They can
Ever.
take your car, they can take your house,
They
but
can never
not,
take that.
that's your experience, that's your education, and you worked for it. And I'm proud of people who just move forward in life, doing what fulfills them, because it's, college is not easy either. That's work.
No,
It's a
no.
lot of work,
It's a lot of work when you're working full time, you have
Exactly.
children, and then you're going to basically taking 4 classes full time and staying up all night. But I was just focused on what's at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That's all. And I would tell my kids that
Exactly.
we're not gonna let anything get in our way. We gotta focus on what the end goal is. And I did that. Then when I finished, I was like, what else am I gonna do? I need to buy a house.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm mapping it out for my kids. I'm mapping it out for my grandchildren.
That's right.
Because I said, no matter what I've been through, relationships that have failed, anything, my only relationship that never failed was my relationship with God. And that
Amen.
is what kept taking me through
Mm-hmm.
that. And I'm like, what do I do next? But I had to show them children and other kids, because I worked in the school for
Right.
many years.
Right.
And I would share my story with girls and with guys. I'm like, listen, we don't work like that around here. I said, remember, it's harder for us, and we need to be able to make things work. And it starts here while you're in school. Do what you have to do. I said, hey, I went to school. I went back to college, and I was like, oh, really? And I said, yeah. And I said, it was hard, but you're always going to get what you put into.
Yes.
So
Yes.
and I tell my kids that, and my daughter is sick, and she still goes to college,
Mm-hmm.
and she goes,
Powerful.
she says, Mom, I'm not
She's
gonna let this
resilient.
win. She says the devil's not gonna win,
That's
and
right.
then we did things, and then going back to the podcast, I just started doing more and more, and then it was like, all right, so I just started saying where I was at and what direction I wanted to go in, and I was
And you got
talking about,
validation too, right? From your kids, from listeners, sending
yeah,
you
and
messages, and that's why you do it. But also, I feel like, and I'm sure you probably think, for us, we do it for us too.
I did it for me, and it was very therapeutic for me.
Listen, I go back and listen, and I'm like, Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yes,
I learn every time I meet with somebody in here when we're recording. I learn, even if I know you, I learn something from
right.
you.
And it's like an audio journal when I do those
Mm-hmm.
podcasts. And then some people say, "Oh my God, it was like, it's like you were talking to me."
Mm-hmm.
And there was a book that I just finished reading. I just did it on my last podcast, the one before the last ending season, and it was about spiritual hygiene. And let me tell you something. It's okay to go to church and it's okay to learn scripture, but one thing I will say, until you remove all the clutter within yourself, nothing really aligns. And I've learned about alignment and reading about it. And my cousin, oh my gosh, she's amazing. She's a woman of God, Dee Dee, and she was like, Mama, until you get that alignment, you could do here, do this, but you can't be like this. You got to be right there.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started doing more reading, more scripture. And then I remember I was reading the book of Deuteronomy. And let me tell you something, that book
Mm.
tells you about everything. That book just has everything. And
I
I
might need
was
to tap into that.
it's that book is it's and the book of Proverbs is amazing.
Mm,
But
I
when
love
you
Proverbs.
yeah,
Yeah.
Proverbs is amazing. And then I started reading about the women in the Bible and I'm like, hold on. And you just don't understand how you as a person and in this day and age have such a connection to that book,
Mm.
to
Mm-hmm.
someone in that book.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what's keeping me going. And every time I read, I get an inspiration. I'm like, well, let me see what's going on. And it's like, if you notice, if you're a listener or if you start listening to my podcast, in every episode, I have a scripture that applies to what I'm talking
Mm.
about.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
Thank you.
I'm gonna have to give her. She know what she doing. Yeah, I love that, Lily. And yeah, I mean, as you're talking here, I can feel your spirit. I can
Oh,
feel
thank
like,
you.
yeah, I love to be, around people who are like-minded, who are not afraid to go on journeys, who are not afraid to share their journeys,
Right.
because that's something I think, where brown people also tend to, oh, I'm not,
Mm-hmm.
I'm private. I'm private. I'm not going to do that. Or, oh, I don't need to go to counseling. Oh, no, I don't need to like be on any kind of, emotional healing journey. What is that?
Yeah.
They don't understand. But once you do start something like that, it does bring you, even if you don't have purpose, it will bring you purpose.
It does. So one thing I've learned, and I remember my pastor, he was saying it, and he said, if you're not getting enough fulfillment out of coming here
Mm-hmm.
and the word, get therapy. I go to therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I have a therapist. And
That's
you know
right.
what? The therapy isn't to tell you what to do. People don't get that. And it took me a long time to say, all right, let me do this. Because I used to tell my kids, when you go to therapy, you're just stirring things up. But then I really started looking into it. And when I started, sometimes she didn't even say anything to me. And I just was like for a whole hour just talking.
Yes.
And the way my day was a wonderful day.
Yeah.
But it's one thing I will definitely say, and I say this with my podcast, and I would say it with therapy, and when I say things, you have to be honest about everything.
Yes.
You will not get
Yes.
the results you're looking for unless you're honest.
Correct.
You have to be honest with what it is that you're talking about, and
And you know that you get that feeling when you're ready.
yeah, and I was
Nobody
ready.
can tell you, somebody can push and push you, but you're not going to do it until you have that feeling, and sometimes you have to get to point, like, right, you got to either hit rock bottom and say, you know what, I need to do this. I mean, same, I have a therapist. I mean, and I always say, and I've said this in previous episodes, that friends are great and whatnot, but they got their own thing going on. It's unfair to put your weight on
Well,
them.
that becomes trauma dumping.
And then that's right on, but then also the only thing that they can do is advise you based on their experience,
Right.
and it's not what you may
Right,
need.
right.
You know
And
what I
when
mean?
someone knows you as well as your friend does, you're not going to get the results that you're
Yes.
looking for. You're
Yeah.
not going to get the advice that you're looking for. But
Yeah,
I,
and I say I don't look for advice from people who have not walked in my shoes either. So it doesn't work. It doesn't connect.
yeah, and I tell people, try walking in my shoes. I have no regrets. I have no regrets of anything that has happened in my life.
Mhm.
I don't have any regrets. Every last lesson was my last teacher.
Yes.
And the way I look at it now, And some people don't like when you change. Some people like the
Mm.
old you. Some people like, I remember when she used to do this, or
I'm not the
no,
same.
no, listen,
I'm not.
I am s- sometimes we act the way we expect people
Hmm.
expect us to be, but behind closed doors, that's not how you really are.
No.
And one thing I've learned is I just needed to take that mask off,
Right.
because I had a mask
Mm.
on for so
And so
many
many people have it
years.
on. Even walking to church, they
Yeah,
walk with masks. Gotta
exactly.
be careful too.
When I remember I remember it was like I was learning about just reading things and just going to church, and then again it was a scripture, I don't remember which one it was, but it was something that they had talked about in church, and it was like taking off that mask, and
Yeah.
I felt my whole face turn beet red, like I felt the heat in my face.
Mm.
And then I started looking
It's the
things
Holy
up.
Spirit hitting you.
What? My everything. And I'm going to be honest with you, when ever since that mask came off,
It's so freeing, right?
ooh, it's freeing. Then I was like, then I was like, what am I going to do next? I don't have to perform for anybody.
Hmm.
I don't have to.
It's
I
you,
got it
me.
together. I
It's me
have it
time now.
together. Right. I don't have to be like I have it all together all the time.
Hmm.
Because we see people on social media. That's just you just post whatever you want to post, and you're like, and that's the whole different lifestyle. But
Correct.
that's another face that you put on.
Right.
But
And they may be saying the truth on
yeah,
social,
oh no,
or they may
absolutely.
not. Their life is could be totally different.
Or it's tweaked a
Yeah.
little bit, but at the end of the day, you have to live with that mask.
Correct.
So when I took that mask off, I ended up completing something else I wanted to do.
Hmm.
I remember I said, you know what? Took that, I'm going to buy me a house. So I started thinking differently. I felt differently, and I started learning more about home ownership. And my dad said, "Well, you're already 55." And, I was like, "Well, what difference does it make?" He goes, "Well, you
Yeah.
got to get a house for 30 years." And I said, "No, I'm buying a
Mm.
house." I
Yeah.
said, "I'm buying a house because then I would have completed the goals that I needed to complete." And I says, "And my children will see that mom was mom was just getting it done, and mom got it done."
When there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, and you know what? I This is what I say. And I'm going to write a book, because I am going to write a book. My life has been in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that I'm doing now, I
Mm-hmm.
should have did then.
Mm-hmm.
But
Or
it
not, or maybe this is just your time.
or this is the way, not the way it was
You're
supposed to
wiser
turn out.
now.
I'm wiser. I have peace now.
Mm,
And I think having the peace is what ends up changing everything,
it does.
because I
And peace
don't
doesn't
care.
come easy. You work. That's you earn that.
Yeah, after menopause, it was peace, because that's a whole different, it's a whole different conversation. But it's an issue. It's
Yeah,
something
it's
where
huge.
it affects you. But after the
Emotionally, everything. Yeah,
everything.
physically. Mm-hmm.
So once I got past all that stuff, and then I started learning, what am I doing now? What do I need to learn? What is it that I need to instill? And that was peace,
Mm.
because Avi, I don't care about anything. I don't care about what happened 20 years ago. I don't care what
You
happened
can't
5 years
change
ago.
that. You got to move
The
forward.
past is the past. We need to move forward. And if there's something that I did and you didn't like it, tell me. Don't block me. Don't cancel me. Don't talk about me. Just tell me. And even with the way things are now, you have to just be real.
Communicate.
Communicate, but you
Mhm.
have to be real about
Yeah.
things, and it's the only way you're going to have peace. I don't care about a lot of things that happen. I really don't entertain it. I don't trauma dump. And
I'm in
it's
your place though too. Like I found peace like 2 years ago,
yeah,
and
that's
it was
about when
going through traumatic stuff, and then it was like yes, getting reconnected with God, doing all of that kind of thing, and then working really hard and then asking, but God, hey, this, and
yes.
there was somebody who really disrespected me in my own home, um, came for me. That's how I call it, came for me, because when I was at my worst, they threatened my job. When I was at my worst, because I was out sick on FMLA. When I was at my worst, they came to say just ungodly things in my own home, And people, and these are people, you know, who supposedly go to church, seasoned Christians. And so I kept asking God for 2 years, because you're gonna know what I'm talking about. And God, how could people do that? How could people
Mm-hmm.
do that? I don't understand. I don't understand. How
Mm-hmm.
could somebody do something like that and be so um dark?
Right.
Be so dark. And one day I didn't go. Usually I visit Life Church in Makunji,
Mm-hmm.
and I ended up going to the Bethlehem one. And it was funny because as I was sitting there, I wasn't kind of feeling the pastor that was there.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't the regular pastor. Somebody came in, and I was like, oh, this guy's a little bit on a, you know, slower tone and
Mm-hmm.
whatnot. And all of a sudden he starts talking about, well, you know, I know you're talking and I know you're probably wondering, but yeah, what about the people that come to church and do X, Y, and Z? And then he said, they wear masks. And I was like, and I woke up and I was like, Jesus, you just answered the question I have been looking for the past 2 years.
Yep. Yep. And that's something
So I
that
know what you're talking about.
that intentionality that we get, that awareness, that awokenness. It's like it was something that said, I'm not when I came to terms with that, I'm not letting anything get in my way. I'm not
That's
letting
the thing.
anyone get in my way, because you know what, Adi, this is my time now. I've
Nobody, yeah, and I say
It's
nobody
my
pays my
time.
rent unless you pay my
No.
rent. You can go ahead, talk about me all you want.
Yeah.
I'm not into that either.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, as Latinos, we brown and black people, we talk a lot and we do whatever, but now I don't entertain a lot of things. It's just not
Right.
worth it. I don't entertain it. And I'm just like, even at work, I'm just like, we need some good energy here. Like, it's
Yes.
just,
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't entertain it. And I'll tell you something, you lose a lot of people in your circle,
Mm-hmm.
and,
Yes,
you
you do.
know, things change, but at the same time, when things start to come to fruition, then guess what, that's when that peace starts to come in.
That's it.
And it's not
Mm-hmm.
it's because there's a difference between avoidance and not dealing with things,
Right.
and there's a difference with pulling the weeds out and
Mm-hmm.
just knowing what works for you and
Right.
what don't work for you. And that's what I'm getting into season 3 with, about intentionality, about what it is that, where are we at, like, where are we going with this, like,
Yeah.
you know, are we gonna, like, I look at it now, where I was at the podcast when I first started, and where it's gone, and I'm like, oh my god, I did 20 episodes, like, when did that happen?
Look
And
at
it's
you.
like, yeah, and
When?
I'm
How
just,
do your episodes go? Like weekly?
my episodes are weekly. I usually they
And what?
usually
How long is your series?
like 10 episodes.
10 episodes per
Yeah,
series.
so it's 10 episodes, and it's like you said, I have like some type of a title or something that goes through. It's
Yeah.
just, and then I go in. So, like I said, the first one was healing, then the other one was the new era, and then the next one is going to be about intentionality and moving on. And it's like, I'm, and the more I do it, it's like, oh man, every time I'm doing something where I talk to somebody, I'm like, where's my phone? And I put it in my notes. I said, that's going to be a good podcast.
Yeah.
But now it's, you know, I want to build it up because I enjoy it. People enjoy it. My goal, and the reason why I did it, is because there's so many people who don't have anyone to either
Mm.
talk to, or I would say, when you hear somebody else say
Mm-hmm.
something, and the conversation is like, when you do, I do audio, when you do the audio, it's just me talking. You can rewind me as much as you want, or you can forward it, or you can go back to it.
Mm-hmm.
If something really resonates with you,
Right.
then you can always go back, and it's like, wow. And if you like, oh, I heard this girl, you know, on this podcast, and she did this and that, and you forward it to them, so it becomes a
Yes.
catalyst. And my intention is, I know I've been there, I've done that, and you know what? Maybe I could help you out, because this world needs some type of,
Exactly. Well, we need to
inspiration.
share our experiences. Not that that's gonna, can't say it's gonna heal anybody, but it might. It might
Yeah.
help somebody, and that's why we do it. Even if it's one person, that's one
No.
person that we touch somehow. You know, and you talked about how, yeah, share. You know, you listen to the episode, share it. You know, that's something that as content creators and as podcasters we need.
Mm-hmm.
We need for you. You know, it's nice when we get those likes, but it's even better when you may make a comment and
Right.
say, this was awesome, thanks, or, you know, or I wish I would have heard, whatever it is that you want to say, but at least say a couple of words and send them in a comment, and then share that reel feel, share that episode with somebody that you may think may need it, and because that's how we keep it moving forward. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how we help one another to,
No,
to grow.
I'm not worried about monetization, or
Same,
I'm not worried
same,
about that. This is something I do on my listen, I
same.
work a full-time job, and like I mentioned, I have a child that is like we're always in the hospital and doing things. I do this from my heart, and I do it because I felt that this has been my purpose.
Yeah.
And this is why I do it. And as long as I can continue to do it, then I'm going to keep doing it.
Yes, because part of it, remember, it is for us too.
Mhm.
This is like this is therapy right now. Like talking about this, letting some things out when you're in the right space,
Right.
And so like, yes, I want you to continue to do it. Don't quit. It's
Yeah.
awesome what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. And I really appreciate that because it's not so much even getting the word out. It's much about people just respecting your views
Mhm.
and understanding that,
And your story,
you're
your experience. This is lived
yeah.
experiences that we are talking about. I went through this, and this is
Yeah.
how I processed it. This
Right.
is how I got through it. And
Um,
this is how it helped me to grow.
Yeah. It's funny that you said that because when you're talking about people processing, it's people say, "Oh my God, you don't even look like like you have a child or you're going through all this stuff. I don't know what I would do." Well, listen, go to episode 3 or 4 in season 1, and I talked about being a caregiver, because being a caregiver,
Oof.
that's a job in itself, not just being the patient, but that.
Yeah.
And I brought that to light
It's
because
a
I've
whole different
been
level.
there. I've been there, and I know what it's like. And I talk about the quality of taking care of yourself,
How important it is.
and making sure that you have to have people helping you. Don't be
Mhm.
afraid to reach out, because you can only do so much by yourself. Even if it's, your prayer team, your worship team. I go to Resurrected Life in Allentown, and I
Mm.
want to tell you something. I cannot be more grateful for that family.
Mhm.
I belong to Women of Ministry, and every day you're in prayer. If you need something, they're always checking up. But you need to know, I could almost feel like those prayers are there, if that makes sense. If you're in a
Yeah.
spiritual place, you'll know what I'm talking about, because
Do you find yourself like when I was younger, I used to hear everybody say God bless or this or
mhm,
bendiciones, and I'd be like, I will never say that. And now as I'm older, I'm
God,
blessing
yes.
everybody.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, have a blessed day, because I know I want to have a blessed day. I want to have a good day.
Yeah.
And it's something where it's important to know that there's somebody there. I can be by myself for 2-3 weeks, and I'm
Mhm.
doing things between working in Philly and coming back. But I know that I get that. Today I got a text from my friend Pauline. She says, "God got this." I get a text from my
Love
cousin
it.
Dee Dee. She's like, "Good morning, beautiful." She says, "Remember," she says, "the alignment." And
Hmm.
it's kind of like, ooh, it's
You
an
gotta like bring
affirmation. It's an
yourself,
affirmation. And then
Yes.
I put something on, I don't know which platform it was, and I said, get up and put your lip gloss on and your hoop
Yeah, I saw
earrings
that. I saw that.
and get it together, because you also
I
want
was
to
like, I
feel
need
good.
hoop earrings.
No, that was a Latina thing. But you need to not only get through things, but you also need to take care of yourself and get out of some
The
of
mindset, you need
yeah.
to stay positive. And I know I've heard people, positive this, positive that, and
No.
F this, F that. And I'm like, it's not that life is dandy. It's just that I am not gonna allow like a certain situation to take me down further
Right.
than what it's affecting me. So I know what you're talking about, because I've heard people say, "Oh, I didn't know you were going through anything, but you're always smiling." Well, I'm not gonna get on social media and cry. Well, maybe
No.
someday, but not now. you know.
No, yeah, and you're right, because it's something where we wear that mask.
Hmm.
But I took that mask off. If I'm having a bad day, I'm having a bad day, but I pray on it
That's
before
it.
I come out. and
Yeah.
and my energy has to be good, because I have a child that
You
our
need. You
energy
need.
feeds off
Yeah.
of each other, and I
Yes.
need to keep it real, but I keep it straight.
Yeah.
And that keeps her going. And then other people see her, and they're like, oh my God, I would never have known. Like when she was on campus, she goes to Moravian, they're
Mm.
like, and she's like, we
Yeah.
haven't seen you. She says, well, I've been in the hospital
Right.
because, and they're like, what? I would never have thought that you were sick. She goes, that's the point.
Yeah.
But it has to be, you have to have a different
Well,
look.
I'll tell you what. I don't post when I'm down, like, so I have a lot of mobility issues, and there are times I need a cane, and there are times I need a walker.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just hits me out of nowhere, just like
Right.
grief, you know.
No.
And so I don't start posting that and put it on there. Why? Because I have to be like positive in a mindset of healing
Mm-hmm.
while I'm, trying to recuperate. So no, I'm not going to bring out the cameras. I don't know if that's like something that people want to see, but it's again, it's not wearing a mask. It's just I need privacy right now because I need to do me.
Well,
You
our
know.
life isn't a reality show either.
There you
That
go.
we have to have the
Yeah, I
cameras
don't,
and we
yeah.
have to do everything. But I have a real stressful job and I have to make sure that I always
Mm-hmm.
have that smile on my face. But at the same time, I've come to terms where, all right, don't take this home. Get
Right.
in that car. I'm done with that. And I
Yep.
move on. And because if not, you're just going to find yourself so stressed out all the time. And you
A friend of
can't.
mine said to me a long, long time ago, because sometimes I used to talk about work after work,
Mm-hmm.
and then he says, "Is work paying you right now? Are they paying you?" No. Then I never talk. He said, "I never talk about work
That's a good
unless
point.
somebody pays me." Why? Because that now you're taking up your private time, your free time to talk about maybe, something that just affected you that day,
Yeah.
and that's why you have the right mindset. That's why it's good to just, you let it go,
I let that
leave it over
there.
there.
I leave it there
Yeah.
on 613.
Don't
I
bring it
don't.
into your home.
Nope. And the thing is that if you do, your day doesn't end.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and you don't get ready, your mind's not properly ready to get ready for the next day.
Yeah.
So I leave it there and I don't and I've learned that, and between learning that and just like turning it off and turning it on, your whole evening's different, your whole night's different, you
Yeah.
sleep better. And even at work,
Yes.
when all they do is talk about, I said, well, there's a sale at Target, and I don't know if anybody, because it's like, why are we still talking about work at lunch?
Right.
But it has to be where there needs to be a time where you shut that off. And just like you shut yourself off with your mind, and then you have to say, okay, I got to get it together, it's the weekend, what are you going to do, how am I going to do this? And now it's like, okay, I'm constantly looking for content like you are,
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
that's like another job.
I just started just filming myself doing like whatever, walking, eating my lunch at in Southside while I'm whatever it happens, because and then I figure it out. What do I do with this? Oh, I could maybe do this. We do have a few minutes left,
Mm-hmm.
and I know you're gonna start. When does season 3 start?
Season 3 is going to start next Tuesday. I'm going to go right into
Yeah.
it. I was going to do a little lapse and give it a little break,
Take a
but
little break. But it
yeah.
doesn't matter if you take a little break,
No, I'm good. It's all
Yeah.
right here, and it's all right here. So
Yeah.
I need to move it on and, just put it in there and get it out into the universe and just share what needs to be shared. And
And you're on major platforms. You're on YouTube. You're on TikTok. You're on Facebook. You're on Instagram,
Instagram,
and then of course, then you're also on what?
Amazon Podcast,
Yep.
Pandora, iHeart. And what else was there? Yeah, I think that's about it.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of what
Apple.
you Apple. I'm on
Apple.
Apple
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. So you'll find this Simply Lily. And you look at this face. You'll see her face on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm so psyched for you, because I think this is also just part of healing for all of us too, and having purpose in life as we get older. I like being older now. I like,
I do too.
yeah, I like having, that knowledge and having to figure it out how I needed to have peace in my life.
Right.
And do the things that, have purpose for me. So yeah. So I think we're like right there,
No, right. And it's not where you start, it's how you end.
Yes, yes.
And that has been the magic words for me that I will never forget. That
Yeah.
somebody, Sister Evelyn, said that to me one time. And she says, what do you mean you're not going to get a house? She goes, remember, what are you going to go to back? She goes, it's not where you start, it's
Yeah.
how you end. And that was how many years ago? And in between that time, I've accomplished so much.
Yeah.
And I'm not done.
Yeah, exactly.
And
No,
I'm
we're
not
never
done.
done.
And
Yeah.
I'm not done.
Yeah, there's, hey, life is great, and we need to, I always say this is a gift. Life is a gift.
No.
So use it to your fullest, because at some point,
There's only one.
Yeah, there's like
There's
you're
only
right.
one life.
You're
Yeah.
right. So, well, thank you, Lily, for being on
Thank
the show.
you.
I'm super excited to get going with season 3.
I am.
Yeah, I wish you lots of luck with creating
Thank you.
content.
And
That's a
this
lot of
is,
work. That's a whole different like game.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
different beast, but it's worth it. And let me tell you something. I have to tell you, Ali, I'm so proud of you too, because when you
Oh,
asked
thanks,
me to be
sis.
on here, I'm like, oh my gosh, my first podcast, as an not just an audience, but now I'm going to be a guest. But fixing each other's crown and
Yes,
being there for
yes.
each other, that's what
Yeah.
it's all about. I
Yeah,
appreciate you.
appreciate you, man, for
Yes,
real.
for
Yeah, for
sure.
real. Yeah. I love people who are just in our stage of life.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of friends too. So guys, just never give up.
No.
Always have a plan. And sometimes we fall. Get right up, dust those shoulders, and keep it moving. Because there's never a right time to do anything. You just
No.
jump in it and get it done.
This is
If that's what you want, that's how
We're
you
signing off
succeed.
now. Peace and love
And
to my whole
stay
podcast crowd.
connected.
Peace.
Until next time.